Hi, everybody. I'm Lala, also known as Sparkling Lala on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I also have a blog called Sparkling Lala, among other things. I've been part of the digital space for the past, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years or so. And it started with e-commerce, but then it quickly just kind of ran into, it looks like we lost Suki. From there, it just went into different food blogs. And now currently I work with a digital marketing agency at Gigasavvy. I guess you can call that my real day job. And from working with Gigasavvy, we started working with different influencers for current food brands, such as Johnny Rockets. We also work with Market Markets if you live in Southern California, and among other brands. And through that process, we get to work with really awesome Instagrammers and food bloggers. And among those is someone like Tanaya, who is here with us today. And we also have Suki, who I think we lost. Hopefully she'll come right back. But in the meantime, Tanaya, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
Share your background and how you're now an Instagram influencer.
All right. So, hi guys, I'm Tanaya. My blog is called Tanaya's Table. Oh, hi Suki.
Hi, I'm back.
Okay, good.
Suki's back.
Sorry.
So, so my blog is called Tanaya's Table, and I started thinking that I would go into public relations, and I did work in public relations after I got my master's in public relations. But during that time in grad school, I became a food editor, and it just one thing led to another, and I started my blog soon after. I've done food radio, all things food. I do a little bit of on-camera video hosting and content creation in the digital space. And I just love food photography and sharing my passion of food with everyone. The coolest thing about food is that it's not just tasty, but it's a shared experience, and you can connect to people that way, and there's so much to try. So that's what I love the most. And I do live streaming, and then of course the Instagram that Lala talked about.
And Suki, I've known Suki for, oh my gosh, how many years now, Suki?
Oh my God, more than
5,
10.
6, 7 years?
Yeah.
I don't know, more? Okay. Yeah, I'm like long time. So when I met Suki, this was before even social media was even a thing, right, Suki?
Yeah.
And we actually worked.
We were like, just like.
We were a part of Eats and Geeks, and back then there was no Instagram, and we just took photos of our food that we made for ourselves. So Suki, you have a very interesting background. Can you also share that with everybody?
I don't know how interesting it is, but I actually got into food via Yelp. I was like reviewing over there, and people were like, yeah, why don't you just get into like the food world? So I started writing, and then I started like, taking photos, and I thought like, I want to share more of my photo passion and make that more of my passion. So I've had my blog now for 5 years, and it kind of started as a way to like teach myself how to cook. And then it quickly panned into how to take, food porn photos. So that's why I'm like really excited to kind of like share my tips here today, because, I went from taking photos that were, whatever to now like, perfecting it. So I got, so I'm really excited to like share that with you guys. But my blog is over at fork2pan.com. Check it out, and, join me over there.
Yeah. So there's different, obviously there's different ways to take food porn. You have the really high level expert professional where they do the whole food styling and so forth. And then you also have those that have their professional cameras and they take amazing macro shots. And there's people like us who use our smartphone devices. And I use both. I have a Sony a6000, and I also use my iPhone, and I also use a Samsung Android. And so depending on the situation that I'm in, I like to use all three. Suki, what is your favorite device as far as, what you use right now to take your food porn photography?
My favorite is my trusty iPhone here. So I've been using that for a long time. What I've learned best with the iPhone is that it's got a great camera. It lets you set a focus, and then you can also go in there and take your photos. So it's like been my trusted device for a long time, and they keep improving the camera on it. So it's been my go-to device for a long time. There's lots of great editing apps as well in the App Store to help enhance your photo. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's just in itself, it's improved a lot as a camera. There's a lot that you can do with it. So I really love using it as my kind of like go-to device and sort of getting better at it every day.
Very good. And what about you, Tanya? What do you use?
So I use an Android device. I have a Galaxy S5. It's not even an S6 because I'm not an early adopter. So I'd rather like have other people test out the kinks, and once they're worked out and I know it's a good device, then I get it. So I chose to get the S5, and it's worked really well for me. It's a little different than the iPhone. I have an iPod Touch as well, and I have a Canon Rebel T2i that I got a long time ago, but I really just use my smartphone the most. So
very good. So I love the fact that we have an iPhone user and we also have an Android user. So we get to hear from both perspectives. Now, one of the challenges that, that I've seen from a lot of food photographers using their smartphones is, handling the lighting, because we get invited to events and they're asking us to take pictures of their foods, right? Restaurants, chefs, or, outings. What do you do to fix that issue as far as, getting that proper lighting? Anyone can take this one.
Go ahead, Suki, you go first.
I try to use natural light as much as I can. So I like it when my events or wherever I'm at is sort of during the day. But sometimes you can't control that. So if you're in, a restaurant that's dark, and in most occasions you are, I like to carry what's called an LED light, and you can find that on Amazon. Just search for like a photographer's LED light. And people have seen me, have this like big hunk of a light, like kind of overhead, and then, like other people have held it and like seen. It's kind of it's a great spectacle when you're out and about. People are like, "What is she doing?"
Accidentally blinding people. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a great time to bring up what you're doing, because you will create quite a show while you have that light, because people are like, what is going on? But yeah, that's kind of been my go-to, either natural light or an LED light.
Do you have the LED light with you now so people can see what that looks like?
I do not. It's actually in another room.
Okay. But no worries.
And I carry it like in my purse, and like I also have one in my car. You can also find it at like a photography store. Adorama.com also sells it. But basically, you're just going on Amazon and searching for a photographer's LED light.
And people each wants to know what brand is it?
Ooh, I don't remember.
Well, maybe you can add the link to it later.
Yeah, I will.
We're done.
I'll add the link. Just hit me up on Twitter, and I'll send a photo.
Perfect. Tanaya, what about you? What do you do with your lighting situations?
So yeah, I definitely try to do as much daylight photography as I can, because nothing beats natural light. And there will be times where I'm invited to an event that's in the evening, and if I can't make it, I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of a relief because I can reschedule it for a daytime shoot. Mm-hmm. So if I don't have natural light, I definitely do what Suki said. I have an LED light, but at the same time, I try not to have it directly on the food. I kind of like to have it more ambient light. So like I like to play around with the shadows and things like that. Because like as Suki probably knows, you have to know how to use that light and play around with the angle. You can't just like shine it anywhere, right, or have it overexposed.
Yes, and I've been at events where foodies are actually very supportive of each other, where they light each other's food for their photo session as well. But when you're by yourself and you're covering an event by yourself, that's where it can get a little tricky, right? So as for myself, I was lucky enough to find this Lume Cube. It's called. I think it runs for $200, but the battery on it runs about 8 hours or more. And you can just, and it has different levels of lighting. So this is a pretty good gadget you can use if you don't want the LED light. And as you can see, it's pretty small. And you can go to lumecube.com to purchase this. So that's my go-to for food photography. So Tanaya, you brought up a good topic, which it would be shadows. You know, sometimes you get those dark shadows when you have the light on photography, but you don't want that gray shadow that kind of goes behind the plates, or just because you have the lighting on and on one side and all of a sudden there's like a deep shadow on this side. What do you do to cover up those shadows or make them a little bit more subtle?
Okay, so there's two ways. One is in real life. So in that way, actually, there's two ways within that. So if I have a friend who's helping me or someone who's willing to help out, and they have another light source, let's say even from their iPhone or something like that, again, and you don't want the light to have different warmth to it. Like some lights are more cooling, and so they make the food look kind of bluer, and that's not good because you don't want blue food. That's not appetizing. So look for the warmer light, and then also I kind of have them hold it far away in the background from another angle to kind of help eliminate the shadows. Or I play around with the restaurant's natural light and see where they have good lighting and take it there, and then use my own light if I still need to really accentuate the parts that I really want to highlight. And then the other way is in editing, which we'll probably get into later, I'm guessing, but where you can like decrease the shadows, kind of like lighten the shadows in the editing process.
So you do the editing in your apps after you take the photography. Got it. What about you, Suki? What do you do to avoid those dark shadows when you take your food photography?
When I have the food like in front of me, I try to see like where the shadow's at. And then I've also noticed like as it gets like longer in the day, the shadows get longer. So you have to kind of stand behind or in front of the shadow to try to get sort of ahead of it. Or I'll use like something kind of to diffuse it. You can like, if you're at a restaurant where they have like, you know, fancy white tablecloths or something, you can kind of like put that to diffuse the shadow. Or like Tanaya said, like, you know, just take the photo and then try to edit out the shadow as best as you can. But it's always best to try to not get the shadow in there. Try to like make sure your shadow's not on the photo. Try to like, you know, angle it at a side where you see the shadow and like stand kind of behind it or in front of it. Do the best that you can to like avoid the shadow as best you can. I always try to like put the food in front of me, see where the shadow's at, and then move around. Like you'll see that if you ever are somewhere with a bunch of foodies, you'll see them moving the food around, trying to get like the best shot, trying to figure out like where they're at. Like I said before, it's a spectacle, but try to always figure out what's creating the shadow. If you're creating a shadow, if you can move the plate around, or if you can get someone to kind of stand and buffer you, or put a white tablecloth or something. It's always good to kind of carry one.
Right, and there's diffusers as well. Good point, Suki. I totally forgot about that. And you can get those online too. They're kind of more expensive, but you can use exactly like the white tablecloth. You can carry a like you use a napkin, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But like diffusers are a great way.
I've seen people sometimes walk around with a whiteboard, and you can buy like a white cardboard at any office store, you know, and just walk around with that if you don't want to invest in a professional diffuser. Yes, it's a little awkward when you're walking into a restaurant with this white cardboard, but like Suki said, you can also use a white napkin to kind of soften up the light.
There's actually another hack. If you can find one of those car, like the foldable car shades that's white, because usually they're like silver colored, but if you can find one of those, that's really helpful. I just got one the other day and they're super cheap, and you just fold it up. It like turns into a little circle that's soft, so you can put it in your purse, in your bag. Yeah, the 99-cent store. Chris, yes.
Yeah, I just saw that, yeah.
Right, so that's another cool way where it's like cloth-ish, but it's like easy to fold up, portable, and cheap.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, speaking of shadows and lighting, Suki, you brought in a good point where you said that throughout the light, the shadows get longer. Is there a certain time of day or certain natural light that you prefer to take photos? Because you obviously don't want to take them in the, you know, when it's super bright outside, right? So Is there a certain time of the day that's your favorite time to take photography outside?
4:35. No kidding. Basically, if you're like anytime like right before the sun sets or right as the sun is going down, is like a great time because you get that great natural light. As the sun is setting, like I said, the shadows get longer. So around 6 or 7 o'clock, you're going to get those really long shadows. And it's also going to get sort of dark. So your photos, you're going to need like an additional light source to add to your photos. You might think that, the light is enough, but if you look at it on your phone, you'll see that, it's actually not enough light. So around 4 or 5 o'clock is actually like an ideal time to take your photos. Especially if you're using like a smartphone. If you're using like a DSLR, it'll like kind of, make up for the fact that you don't have enough light because it'll sort of, adjust to it. But,
Right.
if you don't have the fancy equipment, because we're talking smartphones here, you want to try to capture, the best light. Or early morning is really great light. But a lot of us are, taking these photos sort of late at night. So it's called what's called like the golden hour. I just learned this term. So that's kind of what you want to capture is during that golden hour between like 4 or 5 o'clock.
Very nice. What about you, Tanaya? Is there like a favorite time for you?
Totally. The golden hour is key. And it also adds like a little warmth to your photo, like a gentle warmth.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, check the sunrise and sunset times. You can just Google it because it's changing so much, like especially with daylight savings and stuff. So it's all different. And I think the days are now starting to get shorter again because summer solstice just happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that hour before sunset is great. And then any time of day can work as long as you have shade. The farther away from noon, the better, because noon, obviously, you have the least amount of shadows and the harshest shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would say just like the farther you get from noon on either side is still good.
So you have the perfect app, you have the perfect smartphone, and you have the perfect lighting. What about the background? How do you make that dish stand out? What type of backgrounds are your favorites? Suki?
My favorite, the clearest background that you can get is possible. I try not to get like any tables and chairs. I try to like, if there's a nice, table, I try to get the food like, just around the table. Sometimes I'm zooming just right into the food itself, especially if it's like such a great dish and there's like, egg porn going on and all this great stuff. So I'm just like, zooming right into the photo. But a lot of places have like great brickwork or they have something interesting going on in the background. So I'll kind of, walk around the restaurant to see like what's going on, see what the backgrounds are. And you'll literally see me like leave the table and go shoot up against that background. So I'll be like, oh, that's so cool. Like there's brickwork going on or there's this going on. I want to capture that so I can talk about sort of the interior of the restaurant at the same time and the food. So I can kind of capture both and let people know, like, don't just come here for the food, but also check out, what they're doing with the interior, how they've got it decorated. It makes for great talking points. So it's always a good idea if you're taking a photo, just kind of scope around and see, like, where else you can take photos. If the chairs are interesting, maybe like shoot on the chair itself or just shoot directly like on the table itself if it's like a fancy wooden table or whatever it is. Usually we figure it out as we're going along. Like something just hits us, like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I love this space or something like that. And, I'm sure Tanaya can attest to that too, because I've seen her literally run off.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually seen both of you run towards the wall or stand on chairs. So there's there's definitely a lot of skill behind that. Would you say that when, like, let's talk about contrast and lighting, when you have certain backgrounds and you want to make certain ingredients of the food pop out, do you have any tips there?
So I do like pattern the background, things like that, as long as it doesn't overshadow the food. If it's not brighter than the food and doesn't take away from it. Sometimes if a food is kind of plain, but it still looks nice, the background kind of adds a little pop of color. But let's say you have like some red in your dish that you really want to highlight. You could have elements of red in the background. That helps. Also nails, like that's a whole other thing. But anyway.
No, tell us about the nails. I want to know about the nails.
Okay. Oh, and then to your to your point about backgrounds, once again, I also do this thing where I like to tell the story of the environment that the food was found in, if it's something cool. For example, like if you see my Instagram at Tanaya's.table, you see like a lot of foods have, for example, I went to the OC night market and I got like buffalo, no, what was it? It was like an ice cream cone, something. And in the background, you see like the blurred out night market setting. So kind of, you can tell that I'm having this at the night market, whereas instead of like just something plain. But like if there's something cool that's plain, then obviously, you know, you totally have to go according to the environment and see, like, be open to inspiration and not just go in thinking like, I need this kind of background.
Yeah, very cool.
And
What
then
about?
you were saying about
Sorry. Yeah, tell me about the nails, because I see on Instagram I always see amazing food behind, like, it's an example would be an ice cream cone behind like a hot pink background, and then the girl has yellow nails. Is that planned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I know, like, yeah, for me, I wasn't really into painting my nails. I'm still not huge on it, but if I have like a lot of events coming up or a lot of shoots coming up that I know I'm going to be holding my food, I'm like, I might as well get a manicure, or like just change it myself, you know.
So manicure is a must then.
Yeah, and a pro tip is saving money with manicures. If you don't need a full-on manicure, but you want them to, you know, I don't have the patience to sit at home and do like all those coats and stuff like they do. So I just get a polish change. It's so cheap. It's like $7 where I go, and they do a great job. It lasts me a long time. So, you know,
that's a
it's
great
cheaper
tip.
than a full-on manicure, and it saves time.
That's
also,
a
Thanks.
If you can't afford the manicure, Jamberry is also sort of my best friend, because there's also fun patterns like ice cream cones, something like that, like, so you can like kind of pair it up with like your food. Nails are huge, especially if you're a girl. I will specifically, like Tanaya said, go and get a manicure so I can like showcase my nails, because you don't want to show like, you know, your plain nails or nail polish. Like, it's a real detractor, like when you're holding food or if you're doing cooking, because a lot of us will hold our food, especially if we want to just focus on like one thing in particular, like a bite of something, and you're holding it up and you see like that chipped nail polish, or you see something. It's all part of the story that you're telling when you get that manicure. So it's really interesting tactics. It's all about like figuring out the best way of telling your story, and nails is a huge part of it. Another thing is accessories. So if you've got a really cool like watch or like jewelry or a bracelet that you really like, or like a ring that kind of stands out, will also add to your your experience of telling that story.
Yeah, I really like that, and I see that's a trend on Instagram as well, where you have almost fashion bloggers now doing food photography as well, and I think that combination together, it's a different type of artistic presentation. So that's kind of cool. I always wondered, it's like, did she just happen to be wearing yellow nail polish that day with that, you know, pink ice cream cone? It's interesting to me. So the next question that I had is angles, food angles. What are the best food angles when taking photography?
It really depends on what you're shooting. So if you're shooting like a taco, you know, does it look good from the top? Does it look good from the side? I always take a minute to look at the food that I have in front of me. So I don't just start shooting like as soon as I get it. It's a good idea to like, you know, look at it from all different angles, see what's most interesting about the food that you're shooting. Is it the cut of the meat? Is it like, you know, what they put on it? You want to highlight, you know, the best part of the dish. So you're going to want to shoot from like, you know, what's the most interesting aspect. Because if they're talking about like, oh, grade A5 beef and this and that, you're going to want to really get into that and show them like the grains of the meat. If you've got like, you know, an egg on there, an over easy egg, like, you know, take the time to pop, maybe record a video with it, and then record the, you know, and then take a photo of the dish. Like, you know, really figure out like what's going to make it stand out, and like, why are they highlighting this dish? Take a minute to like, you know, hear the chef talk about maybe a particular ingredient that he added to the dish that you see on the dish, and then like, you know, take a picture of that. So it really depends on like what the dish is and what you're trying to highlight. Some people will just shoot and then and then they'll start talking about like, oh, this and this was added, but you don't see that necessarily, like, because the time wasn't taken to like figure out what to do with the dish.
Yeah, and I've seen your egg yolk porn. It's amazing how, Tanaya, you do a really good job at that too, where you show the yolk just kind of dripping down, or the cheese kind of coming apart from the sandwich or burger, and it makes me want to lick the screen sometimes. Of like, these girls are amazing. You guys do a great job.
That's the goal.
That is, well, you do a fantastic job. So what is your strategy when you show your food art, Tanaya?
Okay, so like Suki said, focusing on the best part. What do you want to highlight in the dish? Another thing is shine. So shine is actually really huge in food photography, and if you you have to have the light hitting it at a certain angle so that things look shinier. Like that steak is actually shining, so it doesn't look dull. Or that yolk or that cheese, like the gooiness of it. You can so kind of rotate it, play around with the lighting, to make sure that there's just that glint on it, so it looks all like shiny and fresh,
Yeah.
And then there's there's two different main styles that really do well on Instagram. There's a lot of different styles, or three styles. So one is like that in your face kind of food porn, which is like literally that's the term that came from it, right? Where you just it's in your face and you just want to lick your screen and you're like, your mouth is watering. Yeah. And then there's like the top down. So that's the whole spread that requires a little more staging, where you lay everything out and then you most likely stand on a chair. Done that so many times, right, Suki?
Oh, yeah.
And you take that shot from right above it. So it just you see the geometric shapes of the circles, and you see that fork and the flowers on the table as well. And it's more about the artistic aspect of it, where you're highlighting the food in a beautiful way with everything else together as a whole meal.
Yeah, well,
so those really do well.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of that, and that's very popular also on Instagram and even Pinterest. The landscape of the whole table, where you feel like you're tasting a little bit of that whole menu, and that's definitely a great way to shoot photography. Since we're talking about favorite foods, what's your favorite food to take Instagram photos of?
Ooh. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. The most Instagrammable dish, when you get invited to an event and we want you to take pictures of, what is it that makes you jump up, and
I think things that are handheld, I love that, because when you hold something in your hand, and people love seeing those handheld shots, because I think it's because when you see someone's holding something, you can relate to it, and you're like, I can hold that, I can eat it. It's very you can imagine yourself holding that same item.
Any particular item
right in front of your face, you kind of just want to go so so I think those kinds of foods are awesome. And then again, anything that's cheesy, drippy, yolky, ice cream is great. I love it when it's melting a little bit. So you you want that little drip on it. You don't want that perfect cone necessarily. Yeah. I mean, that's great too. But when it's a little dripping, it's falling onto your hand or something. Those are the shots that I love.
What about you, Suki? What's your favorite Instagrammable photo?
I love food that, like Tanaya said, that's gonna create that magic, egg porn, egg yolk, cheese. I like those fads that are kind of out there right now, like the rainbow grilled cheese, or the rainbow bagels, or the unicorn bagels, or whatever they're calling them right now. I will go chase after those and be like, I want to try it, and then get other people excited about it after I take a picture of it, because that's sort of the best part of my day is when I find something and I take a picture of it. People are like, where is that? What is that? And that gets me the most excited about sharing that story. And then people are like, oh, that's so awesome. Where did that go? So it's if you find something like that, we live for those moments where we find those great shots. There's fruity pebble French toast out there. And I will run towards it because I will literally be like, okay, I'm there. I'm gonna take a picture of it. Like, I mean, literally,
Yeah.
you can ask.
That's like Chris, Chris says, that's the money shot.
Yeah, the money shot.
And to that point, like Suki mentioned, a lot of colorful things. So we really like when colors pop. We love color, and we love unique things, like unique mashups. I personally love unique mashups, like that Fruity Pebbles French toast, for example, or something that's like something that people are going to be like, wow, like I've never seen that before, but I love those ingredients. So how did you think to put them together?
So the big question is how do you catch that dripping shot?
Okay, so
really?
Yeah.
I would say you start shooting right away as soon as you pop that yolk, or even before it, and you just keep shooting and try to be as steady as possible. Make sure you set up your shot before you start poking the yolk. Have it completely ready to go, and if you have someone near you, have them pop the yolk. So you're completely focused and steady with your hand, and you just click away, and then you pick the best shot later.
Well, the cool thing about the iPhone, and I don't know if the Android has this, but you can actually lock your focus. So before you even begin, shooting, there's a feature on the iPhone that allows you to lock in the perfect focus. So if you figured out, your lighting, everything, lock in that focus. You can tap your screen, you see that it's locked. So no matter how much you move your phone, no matter how unsteady you are, it'll stabilize your shot and you will get the perfect shot, which is what I love, that feature on the iPhone. If you don't know, you can always use a tripod. I have a tripod with me. You just set it up, and then you have, like Tanaya said, have someone assist you, pop that yolk, or have someone pull it apart or hold it for you, and you just go to town, like taking the photos. And then before you know it, you've got 5,000 photos of the same thing, and you're going through and you're trying to figure out
which one's the best one.
The money shot.
Yeah,
and
the money shot.
which one you want to use on Instagram. So literally we'll be sitting there going through our photos and being like, okay, what did we get? What's the best one? And sometimes it's like, oh wait, I gotta shoot it again. Hold on.
Yeah.
Or you take 200 and the 199th one was the perfect shot.
Yeah.
And you're like, thank God I didn't stop.
So I've been a little obsessed with macro shots. I have a macro lens, and it was hard for me to take a good macro shot with the iPhone. But then I started playing with the Android, the Samsung S7, and that one takes amazing macro shots. Any tricks, Suki, that you may have using an iPhone to take a good macro shot?
I haven't played around with it much. I've tried Fish Lens. I've tried different other apps. There are apps that you can get. I've tried Camera Lens, and then Camera Plus with the plus sign to get a macro shot. But basically, those macro shots are good for when you're trying to really get to a particular point in a photo, or not a photo, but a dish, and like I said, really want to highlight something in the dish. That's sort of what I've used it for. But I haven't really used it much because I always try to sort of focus on sort of getting it from far away.
Far away, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Tanaya? What do you do for your macro shots to capture that grain of salt or grain of sugar?
Yeah. So like you said, since I have an Android device, the Samsung Galaxy does take amazing macro shot photos. So I think I got lucky with that, because I do, like you, Lala, I love that macro shot of getting in really close and capturing that detail. So lucky with that.
Yeah. Yeah, those and there are like Suki said, there are apps out there that can help you with that. And of course, having the proper lighting, and just so a lot of light can enter the lens, so you can capture that instant shot. Let's see here. Filters. What do you guys think about filters in food?
I'm not a big fan. I love, I'm very, hashtag no filter. I try to get, I want you to see the food as you're going to see it in the restaurant. So I, don't want to put a filter on it, because then I don't want you to show up in the restaurant and be like, well, it's not that yellow, or it's not that red, or whatever you did with it. So I don't use any Instagram filters. what you see in my photos is what you're going to get when you walk into the restaurant. So I edit it and try to get, the best color possible. I'll try to, saturate it enough or adjust the temperature so that you see different aspects of it to kind of highlight it. But I will absolutely not throw a filter on it. I do not believe in filters. I'm very kind of anti-filter when it comes to that, because I want you to go in to that restaurant and get the same food that I had and experience the same thing that I experienced, so that when you're drooling over my photos, you're going to be doing the same thing in the restaurant. And I don't want you to get sort of a skewed experience.
Yes. What about you, Tanaya? Filter or no filter?
No filter.
No filter.
But I do I do like to fix shadows and things I try to do as little editing as possible. But one thing I do love to do, I like to make the colors a little more vibrant, because oftentimes the photo won't do justice to what you see in real life, so in those instances, definitely try to keep it as true to real life as possible. Yeah. But especially brightness, make sure you play around with the brightness so you're not getting, you don't
yellows.
Want dark. Yeah. And the brightness really highlights the vibrance of the food. So and then contrast. So play around with those, but don't go overboard. Less is more.
Less is more. So true. Since we're talking about filtering, what are your top mobile tools? What do you carry with you? Every time you go to a foodie event, you can't leave your house without it. What are your top 3 must-haves?
Like the app, like actual tools, right?
Actual tools. We'll get into the apps next, but the tools.
Yeah. For me, it's the LED light, or some kind of light source. What else do I? Oh, I do like something white, like a diffuser type thing. And then I do have a secondary device, which is an iPod Touch, which I record do a lot of live streaming on and things like that. And that drains your battery, and not everyone has access to another device. But if you can, it's pretty cheap and it's a good investment because you can not worry about draining your own battery and your own storage and things like that on your phone or whatever. And you won't get incoming calls because it's
fine. That's
fine.
Fine. Yeah. What about you, Suki? What are your top 3 must-haves when you go and take food form?
I carry that LED light that I mentioned earlier. I have a tripod with me. I also carry a white, just like a napkin, because sometimes the background or the setting that you're shooting at is just not ideal. So it's just easier to kind of spread it out and put your food on that, because sometimes the table or whatever they give you is just not something that you want to work with. So I will just kind of lay it out and put my food on that, because the table outside might be dirty or there might be something else, and it's just it's not like you're carrying wet wipes with you or something.
Right. What? You don't carry wet wipes?
Actually, I just learned that I should be carrying wet wipes, because half the time I'm shooting egg porn, it's dripping down my arm.
Yeah.
I have actually started carrying those just for the purposes of if I'm shooting ice cream and it's starting to drip. It's I don't want to be walking around with food all over me. Another problem that we have as photographers is we get food on our devices on our smartphones. You can't help it.
Right. So I personally, like I said, I have the Lume Cube. I shared the link with you guys. That helps me a lot with lighting. This is what it looks like. It's a little tiny cube. And then I also I don't do it for selfie sticks, but I also carry my selfie stick because it helps me with certain angles as far as balancing my phone. Plus it keeps it steady when I take photos as well. So it's not for actual selfie photos. And then of course, once in a while, if I'm using my iPhone, I use my Olo clip. And this Olo clip also comes with macro, and it also gives you the wide lens. And I believe you can buy this on Amazon or Olo clip itself. And this is $80 on Amazon or so. And of course, you can't forget about your charger, right? You always got to have your charger when you're taking food porn. I think that's a given, right? Everybody has their extra charger. Now let's talk about apps. I think that's the big question is, we don't create this, food content just magically just from the phone. Sometimes you do need to edit, like you were saying, Tanaya. what are your favorite apps that you use?
I know a lot of people use like ViscoCam, and then Snapseed is another big one. I actually just use the in-app editing of Instagram. That's all I use. I try to keep it as simple as possible because I'm always on go and I'm like, oh my God, I have to post this and I only have this amount of time to do it or something, so I keep it within the app and I try to do as little editing as possible, but it does give me most of the tools I need to edit right on there. So that's me though, but I don't think a lot of people just do that. So.
Right. What about you, Suki? What are your favorite apps?
My go-to and my favorite app for a long time has been Camera Plus. It's about $1 or so in the iPhone App Store. But basically, it's evolved a lot since I first downloaded it, and they're always adding new features to it. But basically, you just drop in the photo, and you can, adjust, the saturation, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows. There's a lot that you can do in the lab area of Camera Plus. You can also shoot from there. I tend to shoot from just my phone in general and then drop the photo in and then edit there. Also, I love Snapseed. It's great for fixing photos. So if there's like, a spot of lettuce somewhere where, it doesn't belong, you can use sort of the healing tool to sort of correct that and like kind of move it out of there. So you don't have like, especially sometimes you'll get a plate of food and it's kind of messy and the plate around it. So if you don't have time to like clean it or you forgot to clean it, you took the photo and you're like, oh no, there's like this ring of something over here. Like, barely want that. Like, edit your photo first in Camera Plus and then drop it into Snapseed, and you can go in there and just like kind of clean it up so it looks like, it was kind of untouched. Because, you don't want people to focus on like that little part, that area where it's greasy or whatever. You want people to really look at the food. So I always try to look at the photo and like, go and edit there. But those are my two go-to apps.
Very cool. So both of you girls gave wonderful tips, information. I'm sure things that some people maybe not think about, that when they see that photo, there's actually a lot that's gone behind the scenes of that photo, from standing on chairs to walking around with white cardboards and
like gooey hands.
People don't realize that food porn doesn't come easy. So let's take some questions from our live chat here. I believe, let's see, Chris wants to know, how do I hold the Loom Cube? So the Loom Cube actually comes with an iPhone attachment. So it's almost kind of like a selfie stick, and then you attach the phone, and next to the phone, you can actually attach 2 Loom Cubes in each corner. I only use one, and I don't have the attachment myself. I just kind of use my hand or have somebody for me hold it. But the Loom Cube does come with an additional attachment to your phone, so if you wanted to use that. Jess wants to know if this link will replay. I believe BakeSpace is resharing the links on YouTube for replay. Kingdom Planners wants to know if you watermark your photos. Suki, I believe you do, right?
Yeah,
I don't watermark. What about you, Tanaya?
I've been meaning to do it, but I feel like, first of all, Suki, maybe you can give some insight as to a good way to do it quickly. But also, I don't want it to like get in the way of my photo. But then I get a lot of reposts that people use it without credit, so that's the reason I would want to watermark it. So it's like a trade-off. So Suki, do you have any tips for us?
Yeah, what do you use for watermarking your photos? And do you do it right away? Like, what does that process look like?
I've had that problem where people have stolen my photos. So now I make sure that I watermark all of my photos. I use an app called Over, and I believe it's also on Android as well. But basically, you can adjust the size, the opacity, everything using Over. So you can like go in and like, drop it in at the bottom really subtly. So it's not kind of like, overshadowing your photos. So if you look at any of my Instagram photos, you'll see that it's really sort of just tiny at the bottom. You can see that, it's not taking up it's not taking away from the photo. It's really simple. You just drop in the photo. You kind of already have it adjusted to the size that you want. And the font is already set. So you just you can quickly do it. So if you're posting photos on the fly at an event, you just drop it in. It's already set for you. And you just put it at the bottom and then resave the photo and then re-upload it onto Facebook.
Wow, so it's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are like, oh, you're so quick and you watermarked it. I'm like, yeah, it's just all part of.
I've been in the same room with you where I see your pictures already watermarked, edited, and
up.
Yeah, it's like, when did you do all that? I'm in the same room with you. Let's take a look at other questions here. Let's see, watermark, and I think for the most part, we're answering everybody's questions. You girls are giving that all the great details. There isn't a lot of questions popping up here. Tripod, do you girls use a tripod? Except, I believe, Suki, you said you use a few tripods?
I use a tripod if I'm trying to get like an overhead shot, or if I'm trying to stabilize a shot. I try to make sure, like, it's already set up and ready to go. It's especially important if, like, you're shooting a lot of photos and you get tired. So you want to, set it up on a tripod. Especially if you've got, lighting going on, you've got a lot of food, you got like multiple different things. So a tripod is very helpful in those cases. And if if you're like me, your hands shake and like you can't stabilize it. You can't stabilize the image, like just set it up. It's your best friend, and then you can just shoot, and get the best photo.
Very cool. Well, if nobody else has any questions, let's end this with our wish list. Girls, what is your dream come true camera? If you had to all of a sudden stop taking photos with your smartphone and money was not an issue, what would be your look at Tanaya? What would be your dream come true camera?
Suki, go for it.
I've kind of started venturing out into the world of Canon. So I've kind of just got myself a Canon recently, and I've been kind of sort of trying to use that and like my smartphone at the same time. But it's been my dream for a really long time to sort of get that dream camera of mine and sort of, getting better at my food photos. So, and so that's kind of like what I'm using right now. If I could, I would try to get like, more of a top of the line Canon if I could, but maybe, down the line, I could possibly do that. When I get a little bit better with my food photos. But I started with like a simple sort of, it's kind of like a point and shoot. And like I've been using that now. A lot of people are using a Sony. I might try to see if I can use that as well. But basically, that's sort of like what I'm sort of playing with and trying to learn how to shoot manual, which is a whole other world.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Tanaya? Dream come true camera?
I think the Canon 70D, I believe. I heard that like that's a good one if you're shooting and you don't like you need to use a tripod to shoot video, because I do some video work too. So that's good at tracking from what I've read and researched, but it's like thousands of dollars. So
yeah.
But the Canon 70D, that would be my dream one as of now.
Yeah. Well, I currently have the Sony A6000, but my dream come true camera, which I'm trying to work on, is the A7. And I hear that you can actually take photography at night, and plus you can also take 4K video with it as well. That camera is ridiculous, and it's that would be something fun to play with when it comes to food photography. So let's see, one more time for a round of questions. What kind of lighting system do you use? I'm using natural light, but the cloudy day is hard to get good photos. So, and that's by Light Orange Bean. If you if you view the video again, Light Orange Bean, they talked about using an LED light, and they also take food photography during twilight time, and I believe you said no time around noon, and
the cloudy day is actually ideal. Like if it's overcast and your whole world is like a big softbox, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've got a problem with the cloudy day. And BC Bellarola wants to know if you post your pictures on Yelp, and do you post your pictures on Yelp?
No. I used to. I don't post anywhere without the watermark because, like he's saying, Eater will use your content without credit because they're always like trying to look for places. A lot of those publications are trying to look for places where they can just source free photos, and they think that, you know, Yelp is a good spot for that. So I've actually stopped posting my photos where people can steal it. A good way to see if someone has stolen your photos is a Google image search.
Oh, okay.
If someone, like, you know, took your photo, or you can like kind of put a tracker behind your photos, which is what I started to do. If I post them anywhere, like on my blog or, you know, anywhere else, I can see it kind of ping back at me, and then I'll see that someone stole my photo, which has been huge for me because I know a lot of bloggers have that problem where their photos have been stolen. So you want to definitely make sure you're protecting yourself, to make sure you're not doing that.
And what type of tracker do you use?
Just Google. You can put a tracking cookie. It's in Google Analytics, actually. When you upload the photo anywhere, you can put a source tag onto it, and then it'll ping back in your Google Analytics to show you where that photo is being traced at.
And the beautyist wants to know how you add the tracker.
It's when you upload the photo anywhere, you can add a meta track, especially in your blog. In the back end, when you upload the photo, when you add the link, you can put like sort of it's called a source tag.
Okay.
And, that's how you can track it.
So that wouldn't apply to social media. It would only apply when you upload it to your blog then.
Yeah, it's hard on social media to put a tracker. There are tracking softwares out there. It's a little bit harder and it costs a little bit more money. Via Google Analytics, it's free. But if you Google like photo trackers, it can cost upwards of like $500 if you really, really are concerned about your photos being stolen. This is something I would recommend to like professional photographers. You know, so if any of us like get to that point in one day, you might want to consider using that software.
Yeah. For me, I guess I'm not a professional photographer, so I don't care. Just use my photos. You know, it's not a big deal. I know that some people don't really care. But what about you, Tanaya? Do you add any trackers to your?
I don't, but I do the Google image search.
Okay.
And then I also I do not post to Yelp because I always think, because this is my PR background, that I can't get away from because I went to grad school for it, so it's like in your head, right? And that's helped me build my brand. But everything I do, I'm like, is this helping my brand and my audience? Like, who is my audience, and am I catering to them? So I'm like, no, so Yelp isn't really my audience. And then there's no way that that's really helping my brand as Tanaya's Table. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to spend my time doing other things or posting it to my blog, to my Instagram, things that are cohesive to that Tanaya's Table brand.
Got it. Well, I think that pretty much ends our panel here. Thank you so much, Suki and Tanaya, for being a part of our BakeSpace panel. I personally love your work. I know that we worked together in the past. I definitely recommend both Suki and Tanaya if you're ever looking for somebody to cover your restaurant or blog coverage or whatever it may be. And I want to thank Babette for having us. This is an awesome way for us to share what we know and share that with our community. So thank you, Babette, for allowing us to be a part of your BakeSpace community.